Um, well, when it comes to relationships, I just don't have any idea, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. I struggle with, well, I mean, a variety of things. I struggle probably most importantly with communication. And I imagine that's true for a lot of people. So I think with me, what happens is like I desire communication. I want to do that, but when given the opportunity, I think what I'm about to say will either be embarrassing, it will be misinterpreted, or it will just sound stupid. And I guess you could tie that in with embarrassing. And so I sort of avoid it. I'm more apt to text a lot of the time because I can almost hide from it. Like I can send it when a message comes back. I don't have to look at it. I can sort of block that until I'm ready to be able to deal with it, or or I can shape up my argument or exactly what I'm thinking. I can shape that without having it sound silly, so I can adjust it and add words, take them away, all that kind of thing, in order to get to what I feel is comfortable before I go ahead and hit send. And then a lot of times when I do hit send, I'm like, well, it's out now, and then you just sort of wait and see what happens. Like I said, this is probably true for a lot of people because a lot of times when I think psychological stuff, I'm like, okay, I wonder how this person would perceive this. I would just say, well, I mean, how would I perceive it? Or what's my underlying motivation for doing something? I also assume that would be someone else's underlying motivation for doing something, and it's proved to work fairly well in the past. It seems accurate and consistent in most cases. I don't really have anything to go on because I cannot read minds. Like most of you probably cannot read minds. And yeah, so I mean, getting back to the actual communicating part. Okay, so barring the fact that it's particularly difficult because you might feel embarrassed or sound stupid, or that it's going to be taken the wrong way, which is quite likely. And I find that that's even more likely to happen with text because there's no way to just sort of see the person's response on the other end. So even though, I mean, it might add some benefits to being initially a little less painful because you can steer away from responding or looking at the content. Once you have hit send, you could be in for a variety of interpretations. So it's all based on tone. Usually that tone, I think, is coming from what the person is feeling at the time. It's like when you feel a certain way, you receive things a certain way. It's like when someone says something to you like, have a nice day, the way that you're feeling is gonna navigate, or is gonna dictate how that have a nice day is taken. So if you're like on top of the world, that have a nice day is gonna be met with a whole bunch of happiness and a whole bunch of warmth and a whole bunch of desire to receive that in a good way. But if you are fucking miserable and you've woken up on the wrong side of the bed and someone says have a nice day, you're gonna be like, what the fuck was that supposed to mean? Like you're probably gonna end up taking it the wrong way. And so what I find communication wise, where we really have a problem, is that we fail to see our own internal state as playing a big part in how we are giving and receiving information. And I would say for the most part, it's on the receiving end of the information. If you're in a bad mood, or if you have maybe some sort of chemical imbalance from too much alcohol or drugs, or maybe there's a hormonal thing going on, or it's maybe a thyroid issue, or you haven't eaten, or you're fucking tired, or any of those things, that is going to navigate and dictate how you receive bits of information. And your trust in the other person, maybe for how long you've known them, is gonna lead you to believe, well, have they reacted this way in a certain way before? Are they coming at me the wrong way? So if you don't have any kind of level of trust in the person who is giving you the information that you're receiving with whatever tone that you're putting on it, if you don't have any kind of built up sort of learning from this particular person, you are going to struggle cognitively on all of that information coming through. I'm not sure if this makes any sense, but for me, all of those things play a huge part in how we're communicating and how the communication is being received. For me, okay, so with all of those factors and variables out, let's take all that out. That's still better that communication, no matter how you're receiving it or what your background is for being able to take that information. What's worse, what's way fucking worse, is silence. I think silence is absolutely and 100% the most toxic form of communication. Nothing is worse than not having any information at all. Yeah, that's got to be the worst. Okay, so if you don't have any information at all, you are then left to your own devices on what the person might think. And if you're an overthinker like me, analyzing 100 different variables at the same time, and I'm not tooting my own horn, this is just how my brain works. When you receive silence as a form of communication, you're inputting, you don't have anything to go on, so you're inputting everything. You're inputting your thoughts, your insecurities, your whatever chemical imbalances, your perhaps experience with the person. All of that is influencing your perception of what's going on in the situation. And with silence, it's all on you. So you've now let me make up my own mind. If my own mind, unfortunately, when the mind does, is just go to like the worst places when it comes to that kind of a thing, when that kind of a form of communication, I'm fucked. I'm seriously at a huge loss. And I am thinking literally the worst possible scenario. And usually it has to do with a bunch of insecurities. Like, it's like the first go-to is like, well, maybe it's because I did this, or maybe it's because I'm like that, or maybe it's because I acted like this, or maybe it's, and the whole thing's fucked after that. Because then you have negative emotion built on negative emotion built on negative emotion, and and nothing to counter that. No form of of information. Nothing is coming through, and so you're just sitting there at a total and complete loss. And so this is why I think 100% silence is the most toxic form of communication. Now, getting past all that, I think active communication, the best way to do it, for me, in regards to relationship, and I don't have a good relationship, so I mean, I'm probably not the one taking advice from, but I do analyze a lot of shit, and so I mean, I'm going to comment on it anyway. I think the best way to do it is if you are, you're experiencing something that you don't particularly like in regards to relational situation, that you take some good time to analyze and make sure all of those things, all of those internal sort of chemical or past learning, all of the what might have been your dog shit on your shoe this morning, all of that stuff needs to come away first. You need to be able to approach this from a couple different mindsets. You need to make sure you've eaten, you make sure that you've had enough sleep, that you didn't drink heavily recently, or you're not on some fucking crazy medication, all that kind of shit. So once that is done and you've thought through this, sort of negative relational aspect from a few different instances, do not belt it out right away, because that's the worst fucking thing to do. Other than being silent, that's second worst. Silence is the worst. This one's the second worst. Don't just give out all your thoughts like that. Don't take your thought, think it, you own it, and then because you've thought it, it's gold and nothing should change it. No. Some consideration should seriously, be given to any kind of cognitive aspect of, especially when you're being anywhere near critical on someone else's behavior. This is something you really, really need to just take hold of. And so make sure that all of those other things are worked out. You've thought about it in a few different lights. You've, given some serious consideration to it, and then and only then approach it in a manner that is going to be somewhat well received by the other person. Like a compliment sandwich or something, like, I really love you, but I really love you. And what I've noticed is that, you're leaving your shit everywhere. Your shoes are on the counter, and I mean, going forward, I see that we can have a great relationship. What I would like for me to be satisfied with everything is here if you just move your shit off the counter, or you didn't stick your dirty laundry everywhere, or all that kind of stuff. So I mean, that's not every argument, but that's just one that we could pick of. Or like, oh yeah, your dirty dishes are everywhere. Or, oh, you didn't clean this up, or I hate because you didn't give me flowers. Well, all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you can, when you do have thought through it on a couple different aspects, try to approach the criticism in a way that is not so fucking critical. And then going beyond that, like I said, don't pick everything. Like the littlest thing in your box of stuff, shit to whine about, and then just have it come out of your mouth. Like maybe write it down. Maybe write it down, the things that you don't like, and then you look at your list maybe the next day, and you're like, oh, that's not so bad. And, oh, you know what, that's not so bad. And oh, you know what, I've dealt with this before, and actually I can get past this on my own. I don't really need to bring it up. And I'm not saying like I'm a perfect person, because I definitely am not. I'm not good at relationships. And these are things that I've done that I don't like about myself. This is why I'm getting mountains. This is why I'm telling you. This is why I'm just telling the camera. That's why I'm speaking. It's on my mind, and it's a difficult thing. So if you can kind of see that these are possible problematic situations, then you can avoid some serious heartache by internalizing conflict where you should be getting it out, by keeping conflict in where you need to be mulling it over, and by completely avoiding using silence as any kind of way to get through anything. And I think if that's at all possible, and if you can apply just those simple things, your relationship will likely benefit from it. So thanks for listening.